Exposure and vulnerability to extreme weather and climate events has been increasing on a global scale. If global greenhouse gas emissions continue at current levels, by 2100, San Antonio will suffer from extremely hot temperatures and longer periods of drought, which will threaten natural resources, energy and water supplies, built infrastructure, and health and well-being. San Antonio is the seventh most populous city in the U.S., rich in cultural diversity and booming in economic growth. The city might not display the most visible signs of climate change, such as rising sea levels, more intense and frequent hurricanes, and longer wildfire seasons, but that does not mean it is immune to its impacts. It is important San Antonio develops a climate action plan, so city managers and employees are prepared for the challenges all government departments will face. An equitable plan that acknowledges social vulnerabilities and develops mitigation and adaptation strategies to improve resilience and ensure San Antonians' quality of life for decades to come. We must learn about past risk to prepare for future extreme weather. San Antonio's average temperature from 1961 to 1990 was 80.3 degrees. The 2090s projected daily average is 90 degrees under a higher emission scenario, seen in red on the graphic, and 86 degrees under a lower emission scenario, seen in blue. In the late 1900s, Bexar County had 109 days per year when the temperature reached over 90 degrees, and 109 dry days when no moisture was added to the environment. If global emissions of greenhouse gases continue to increase, projections are 163 greater than 90-degree days per year by 2050, and 202 days per year by 2100. 2050 projections show 245 dry days per year with no moisture, and 251 dry days per year by 2100. San Antonio has experienced abnormally dry conditions almost every year over the last 20 years, with many years of moderate to severe drought. In the years between 2006 to 2012, the city experienced extreme drought, indicating a high risk for future drought conditions. Bexar County has experienced a total of 215 flood events and 452 precipitation-related extreme events since reporting began in 1996. Compared to state data, flood risk for the county is lower than the Texas state average. The county has recorded total property damage of $51.7 million and a recorded total crop damage of $373,000. Hail and flash flooding have historically produced the greatest amount of property damage, at a combined total of about $1.52 billion. The most damaging weather event to hit the city was the Great October Flood, which was a 2-day event that began on October 17, 1998, and resulted in $8 million in property damage, $100,000 in crop damage, 11 deaths, and 600 injuries.
Back on October 17th and 18th, 1998, a record flood swept through San Antonio, and it left behind such massive destruction. Those who lived in the city back then will probably never forget it. Now, the city's east side was particularly hard hit. Many homes in the Wheatley Heights neighborhood had water up to their rooftops. In some areas, people were rescued by their neighbors on jet skis when the fire department did not have enough equipment to save everyone. The damage was so intense, the federal government encouraged the city to buy out all of the homes and demolish them. The area has since been turned into plain fields.
However, we do not have exact numbers yet on losses resulting from the 2021 winter freeze, where the city endured days of below freezing temperatures.
A usually dry, mild Texas shrouded in snow. But what started as a novelty quickly turned deadly. This house went up in flames, the cause unknown, but it's believed the family may have lit a fire to stay warm.
Just incredibly tragic. A young woman, 41 years old, family, children. It just doesn't get worse than that.
The severe weather has now led to the deaths of more than 20 Texans. Nationally, the toll has topped 30.
Pipes are freezing. We don't have enough power to give everyone energy. And so for me, it's been no electricity, no heat, no Wi-Fi for people who think that's important for over 72 hours.
Emergency Department Dr. Salim Razai has worked on the COVID-19 frontline in San Antonio for 12 months. He says hospitals are now being hit with a wave of hypothermia patients.
It's pretty serious. On top of a pandemic, there was just a story of a mother and her 8-month-old that couldn't get warm and went into the garage and turned on their car and died from carbon monoxide.
San Antonio has a relatively high national risk index when compared to the Texas state average. The NRI considers the natural hazard involved, a community's social vulnerability, and their community resilience. And 98.8% of Texas counties have a lower risk than Bexar County. This score proves the need for a climate action plan that works for all San Antonians. The city has a variety of cultures and challenges. Not all residents contribute equally to climate change, and not all have equal resources to protect themselves from its negative impacts. Climate equity will prioritize those who suffer the most from climate change, those who contribute the least to greenhouse gases, and those who are the most socially vulnerable to its effects. I'm recommending a climate action plan that encompasses both mitigation, reducing carbon emissions, and adaptation, adjusting to a warming climate. The proposed mitigation action plan would increase carbon-free energy by transitioning toward renewable power, including wind and solar, to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. Promote biodiversity and healthy ecosystems by increasing carbon capture and storage through the use of drought-resistant green infrastructure, planting trees throughout the city and on building rooftops, and enhancing wetlands to absorb carbon, reduce air pollution, and lessen the urban heat island effect, and reduce transportation energy consumption by funding and constructing bike lanes and walking trails for micro-mobility transportation, such as walking, bicycling, and other human-powered modes. The proposed adaptation action plan would include strengthening public health systems by tracking hospital admissions that are related to climate and weather events, and expanding mobile health clinics to focus on the underserved areas of the community. Protect local food security by collaborating with agriculture experts to identify more drought and pest-resistant crops for local food production, and support wildlife that enhances agricultural production. And ensure equity and adaptation by working with organizations to identify vulnerable individuals and groups, to prioritize adaptation strategies, for example, homebound, disabled, and elderly individuals. Climate change will continue to pose risks to San Antonio's built environment, transportation system, and energy infrastructure, which could have cascading effects on the city's economy. It is imperative the city implements mitigation and adaptation actions now to prepare for future extreme climate and weather events.